Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Egg Wars. I hope you are finding this weekend to be most enjoyable thus far. Glad to have you with me. I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up right away. My mouth is still pretty fucking sore from this surgery, so I don't know how it's gonna be wonky today, but bear with me, thank you, and I appreciate that. So I got a couple things here we're gonna start off with, First off, shout out to everybody, much love. Shout out to my three amigos, haven't shouted them out in a hot minute. My boys, Arto, producer Chris, Jack, Hinoff. They know their channels are in the description. Those are my dudes. And also, it has been, by my approximation, it's been like a couple weeks or some shit like that since I've done my little shilling. So I'm gonna shill a little bit today. If you do appreciate Egg Wars and you do enjoy the content, I do have that SIP fund link in the description, and we do accept the BTC as well. Thank you for all the continued support from those who do chip into the SIP fund, keeping the SIPs going. They cost like $1 to $2 a piece, depending on what I'm sipping, so that's appreciated. Thank you so much. And then also, I have a friend of mine, who is looking for some people for some work. If you are from the United Kingdom, and I suppose Great Britain, in the South Midlands or Greater London area, he is looking for somebody. And he said that he's got some work that's paying 50 quid. And if you are from that area, contact him at bernd192@gmx.com. And I'm going to put that in the description as well. So that is all the shilling I've got for the foreseeable future. But I have a buddy here today. This is my buddy who wants to tell us about who wins the copy of Neckbeards today. This is my buddy Chad. You might have seen him around, Chad, I'm curious. I know you told me you have the information on who wins the copy of Neckbeards today.
Hey, Eggman, what's going on? Yeah, it's Chad here. Let me see. Let me use my extremely genetically superior 20/20 vision that will never deteriorate to see who the winner is here. Why, yes, it is Bob Dirt, and he commented, looking fresh as always. So, Bob, hey, go hit up Eggman. He's going to give you that copy of Neckbeards. Hey, man, check it out. It's a fun game.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. Now you can go back over here again. All right, but of course, before we go any further, let's go ahead and crack that sip today. We're rocking the red. I got the red hat on. I got the Review Bra sweatshirt on again. You know what? Fuck it. I might just be wearing this every single day because it's cold in my basement and it's winter and it's a very comfortable sweatshirt and I'm kind of just gross and disgusting and I never go outside, so nobody's going to really care if I wear the same shit over and over again. Plus, I got a rep from my boy Review Bra with his over 500k subs now. God damn, that is some motivation right there if I've ever seen it in my life. Success we're seeing right there. All right, but I don't know. We're going to see how this goes. It might be a little bit harsh on my mouth. I don't know how my mouth's still kind of sore, like I said, so I don't know if the fizzy flavors are going to have any impact, but fuck it, we're going in. We're going to find out if this hurts to drink or not. It's not bad mouthfeel. I don't know about the flavor. I mean, I think I've had this one before. It's kind of like a little bit of a fruit punch flavor going on. All right. It's drinkable. It is drinkable. It's not going to hurt my gum tissue. It's not going to hurt the holes in my mouth. All right. So before we get into the main story today, I want to just issue a little something about, a lot of people lately since I've been laid up last few days, people have been talking about, yes, the Incels subreddit was banned. And people said, how do you feel about that? So I'm just going to point this out, all right? Now, I don't use Reddit. I think I've mentioned this before. I don't use Reddit. I have a couple of times in the past for very, very specific reasons. Usually it's because there's like a very certain particular game that I've played in the past that does not have a very large community. And usually Reddit will have like some updates or some guides, or something. So for that purpose, yes, I have used Reddit in the past. Otherwise, I don't really use Reddit. I don't go on Incel subreddit. I don't go on the MDE subreddit. Excuse me. I don't really do that. But I had browsed the Incel subreddit a couple times in the past. And when I had browsed it in the past, it was usually full of very good information. They had the atomic black pill. That was something that I found really good. I remember I browsed there on a stream one time, and there was some very, very good information that I gleaned from that. So by all my anecdotal accounts, I found there to be a lot of good information on there. Now, we just need to be honest. I mean, honestly, the fact that it was on Reddit this whole time, like, Reddit is not a good website. It's not a good place. It just isn't. It's just, I thought it was impressive that it lasted as long as it did. And it was obviously the target of a lot of scrutiny. But something I found very interesting you see, the thing is that it's actually been reported in news, which is ridiculous to me that it would make like a news outlet like the New York Times. I mean, none of these outlets really have any sort of credence anymore. They're all a bunch of tabloid, slanderous garbage as far as I'm concerned, but just so interesting to me how it makes these news articles. And essentially, the thing is that they never focus on anything that is below the surface level, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, they don't look at, how, like, when I made the Black Pill video, I didn't spend 20 minutes just sitting there and people would watch like a minute of it and be like, oh, it's the ugly guy, it's the ugly loser guy. They didn't sit there and watch it and take into account, the deep damage that our society is suffering at so many levels when we're at the highest rates of unmarried people, they're the oldest they've ever been with the least marriages they've ever been, and there's all this horrible shit going on. They turn a blind eye to that, or if they are forced to look at it for any reason, they just say, oh, that's drumpf, that's blah, blah, blah. They have some excuse for it every single time. They don't want to try and have to actually come to terms with societal deterioration and societal decline and cultural deterioration and all these different things, They don't want to have to come to terms with that, so they just go blah, 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 whatever. But basically the big old thing they're slapping on with this story, which is why are you even reporting this in the first place? I don't understand it, but they're like, these men, they say that rape is good, and they're pro-rapist because women refuse to have anything to do with them, so they're gonna rape women. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so men who are, by all accounts, you have no contact with women, basically are going online and they're venting their frustrations online. Maybe, okay, yeah, is some guy maybe gonna go on there and get super pissed off and get whipped up into a frenzy and, do something to a girl? I still highly, highly, highly doubt that even the most radical of people is gonna do that, because, they might go ER, but I don't see anybody who, if you're talking about like the screenshot that was posted everywhere of like this guy who said, oh, I'm a 5'4" curry cell. Is a 5'4" curry cell with small frame really going to be going around and just like going like fucking crazy rape? I don't think that's probably going to happen. I really highly doubt it. It's just frustrations being vented. But this is how they painted it. They're like, oh, this is basically, it's a pro-rape MRA, because that's the whole thing too, is that, if you say, oh, men shouldn't have their dicks chopped off when they're born, which gives them, serious traumatic brain injuries and all these things, and their flesh is harvested on the black market to make women's face creams, you're like, if you're against that, then you're automatically like pro-rape. Women are so fucking stupid. They're just so stupid, and it's ridiculous. The way they conflate so many different things together, that's basically, like I said before, they don't want to ever look at anything. Their minds can't take it. Their pea brains are too small, they're too smooth brain and too low IQ to be able to kind of break shit apart and, use some fucking sense. They have to just kind of smash it all together and then, basically cry online for their fucking Twitter overlords or their beta male, guardians or whatever to make everything okay again, But at the same time, we're looking at, fuck it. I was gonna say we're gonna break it down to America, but let's break it down to America. Let's break it down to Canada. Let's break it down to UK. I'm sure there was probably Australian users of this site as well, and I don't really pay quite as much attention to Australian politics and what I'm about to talk about, but as far as the United States goes, our media is extremely pro-amnesty. They're extremely pro-open the borders, let all these illegal immigrants come into the country. Now, you look at these illegal Mexicans who cross the border and commit crime. What crimes are they committing more than anything? First off, drunken. They drive drunk like crazy. They have no licenses. They fucking don't have. They don't any of that. They drive illegally. They drive drunkenly. All that, they commit. Other than that, I mean, as far as what I know, that is very disproportionate for them. They commit very disproportionate sex crimes. Because I know this, even on an anecdotal level, I've had people who I've known have basically been, at least attempted rape by illegals, because you can't expect somebody who, these people, these illegals, they don't speak any English. How are they supposed to even know what yes or no even means? They can hardly even fucking speak their own language. These are fucking people who they're loaded up into a fucking wheel well when they're 3 years old. They stack them up like burritos. They stack them up like Taco Bell 12-pack tacos in their fucking wheel wells and wheel them across the fucking border. How are they supposed to even know anything? These illegals they rape like crazy. They sexually assault. They're child molesters like you wouldn't believe. I mean, look up how much child molestation these illegals do, because their brains, they're low functioning humans. You know what I mean? They aren't educated in anything. They are just fucking basically drunk. They're drunks. They're rapists. But yet, that's promoted by our media. That's encouraged by our media. Whereas a man who is on a website saying, hey, I got rejected for the 500th time because I don't make $1 million a year. That is by a 500-pound woman that's a single mother. That's horrible. That's the worst. That needs to be front page of New York Times. Then we have, in Canada, I was told recently, or somewhat recently, there was, I'm sure there's numerous cases, but once again, foreigners raping children. And they say, oh, well, that's Islamic culture for children to be raped, because they marry children when they're like 6 years old, and and they molest children, like they're inbreeding, all this different stuff they do, it's these subhuman activities, and there was some guy who raped a child and faced no prison time because that was his culture. And then in the UK, nothing you even really need to say about that, the way that the hundreds, thousands of children who are raped, but I read something recently about where this girl was raped and basically said something, and she said something to her rapist, the man who raped her, who was some Middle Eastern, whatever, some fucking, I don't even know what, some goddamn thing, he raped this little girl, and she got charged with a hate crime because she basically called him like an ethnic something or other. But he was not even charged for raping her, because they're like, oh, well, he doesn't know any better. These German, these refugees who flooded Germany and are raping women and children like crazy. Oh, they just don't know any better. In Sweden, getting raped, the men are getting raped. Everybody's just getting raped. Ahmed's just raping everybody. Oh, well, they don't know any better. That's their culture. But yet if a guy goes on fucking incel subreddit and says, gosh dang, I'm just so upset because, then they take like one fucking post that's pro-rape from 500,000 posts that were made, and they have to go, oh my god, how could they, the kissless, hugless virgins are truly the cancer upon this world. We immediately need to flood our countries with more subhumans who are fucking raping their own children and fucking suicide bombing us and all this different stuff. That's a good idea. We need some more of these fucking subhumans to come and destroy our countries, because our fucking fabric of society is so destroyed. Our relationships are so destroyed that somehow we're having the least sex of any generation. Millennials are the most sexless generation, but yet at the same time, millennial women have so many STDs. Their STD count is astronomical. They're giving birth to these fucking incurable super STDs that are resistant to all treatment. All of them have HPV. They're fucking infertile. They're taking, 5 different kinds of birth control that's fucking up their hormones and making them do all kinds of wild, crazy shit. It's causing frontal lobe damage. It's putting estrogen into the water. That's all fucking gravy. That's just the best. But God forbid some guy get mad on the internet and talk some shit behind a fucking anonymous account while his fucking young child sister is being fucking abducted on her way home from school and getting raped by Ramirez Gonzalez Turbenstein. That would be, oh my goodness. That guy needs a hate crime charge immediately. Alright, well, enough of that. So my actual story I was going to talk about today, and we'll talk about for the next 20 minutes here, is the very first time I ever moved out of my parents' house. And, I don't know, this just seemed like something that I've talked about bits and pieces before, but let's just talk about it anyway. The full story. So, I was the ripe age of 20 years old. It was the spring of 2012. And, I had wanted to move out of my parents' house for quite some time. I had been looking at it. There was people I knew who were my age who had moved into it wasn't Section 8 housing, but it was like rent-controlled housing, It was kind of slummy, kind of scummy, kind of not such good neighborhoods, just not really that great. But it was, they were out, they were doing stuff on their own. And I felt pretty good about, that whole concept. I was like, oh shit, if I'm limited to so much, rent based on my income. The girl who I talked about in the story I made on Ask Eggy, the first chick that I was ever intimate with, she had moved out to go to school and she was on the rent controlled housing. She was only paying like $30 a month in rent. It was crazy because she was unemployed and her mom just gave her that. So basically she was living, she had her fucking computer. She had all this stuff set up and it just seemed so enticing. But at the same time, I was like, I was kind of back and forth on it. I was like, I just don't really, I was like, do I really need to? I know my parents were happy as long as I was working and, everything was just kind of okay. But it was spring of 2012. I'd just been on an Alaskan cruise with my family. And I came back from that and, I remember it quite well. I was watching E3. So I guess that would have been more like maybe June. Well, yeah, I guess It was a pretty quick situation that I moved into this place, I guess, which is probably why some of the horrible shit that ended up happening did happen. But, yeah, I guess so maybe it was like May, June of, 2012. And basically there was a guy who I knew, who I had gone to school with, who had been in my special education classes, and we were on pretty good terms, I don't want anything to, this episode, when I'm gonna tell the story, it's gonna come off like I'm throwing shade, perhaps, or like I'm bitter about it, or what happened, and I don't want it to be that way if the dude ever sees this video, I don't want to put it out like that. I'm just gonna give it, I'm just gonna be straight with it, though, I'm not gonna sugarcoat stuff. I'm gonna, I had some strong feelings at the time. It's not really it's not really that much anymore, obviously it's been years, but, so it was this dude I went to school with, he was in my special education classes, and, but he was older than me, and essentially what happened was he had been living with his mother and his siblings, and we had gamed together and stuff. We'd play games online on Steam and stuff like that, and his mother basically just had enough. She was like, hey, you're 20 whatever years old, 23 years old, and I'm sick of you living here. I got, she had essentially all her kids, I don't know if she was, they were all great people. They were, great, I love all those, the dudes and all that, but he had 3 siblings who were also all mentally, had some disabilities. They were all kind of in special education as well, autistic and things like that. All great people, dude was great. His siblings, I really enjoyed all of them a lot, but yeah, they were probably a handful to raise with all their shit, and she was by herself at the time because, his parents had gone their separate ways. So basically, she's freaked out on him and said, get the hell out of my house. I'm not going to take care of you anymore. It's too much work. So he was risking having to live in his vehicle at the time. He was just basically about to be living in his vehicle, and he hits me up, and he's like, oh shit, I'm about to be fucking living on the street, and I need to find somewhere to go. And I'm like, okay, well, I've been looking to move out, and I guess let's be roommates, you know what I mean? And, this is kind of a pattern that goes in my life where I just sort of do things immediately without any sort of forethought or any sort of, considering any sort of consequences. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, let's do that, okay. So, the thing is I mentioned this too in videos before, I never realized why rent in my hometown was so expensive, because we got this place, and it was like $700 a month, and it was not good. It was not a good place. But the reason why I ended up finding out why it was costing so much is because basically there was so much in the area that's all Section 8 and full of all these random transplants from Chicago, Detroit, all these different places. So everything was paid for, it was basically just a scheme, because these people weren't actually paying anything, but if these people who own the properties were charging the most, that they possibly could. The government was paying for it or whatever, so they're making the most money. A lot of slumlord behavior. But anyway, so I pretty much go over there, we pretty much get the place or whatever, and I had no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I didn't know to take pictures of the place we moved in or anything like that, and I've kind of mentioned some of this before, so I won't get too deep into it. But basically, the place was kind of a shithole, but, I was mostly just like, hey, I'm ready to, prove that I'm a dependent person, or an independent, prove that I'm an independent person and just kind of do my thing and get out there in the world and spread my wings and do all that good stuff. So I'm like, fuck it, let's go. I'm doing it. Let's just get to it. So we move in there, and, the people, it was gonna be that we were moving in at like the end of June of that year, and I think it must have been early June that we even like discussed it, at all, but there was people that were living there, and they basically were like, well, we don't want to have to take our shit out of here, they had like beds, couches, they had some stuff there already, so they're like, well, yeah, we're just gonna like leave this here, cause we got this stuff from wherever, we're just gonna leave it here, they just didn't even give a fuck, so we're like, oh, okay, sure, hell yeah, dude, yeah, let's do that, it's, that's cool, so we got in there, I had a bed, everything was already there, and, it was kind of like, everything was a little bit, like, dirty and dusty and kind of weird and gross, but it wasn't so bad, cause I guess that's just how I kind of grew, in my life, I've become accustomed to, things being a little bit shittier and being, like, if something bad happens, I don't usually, I'm like, okay, whatever, oh, there's, somebody just shit all over my life, well, okay, I'll just go with it, that's pretty much what my life, has kind of been like. So I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. Hey, man, it's a free bed. It's a free couch. Hey, man, whatever. Yeah, it's cool. Leave it here. Yeah, whatever. It's all good. So we get the internet installed. Everything's going pretty good. And there was a guy who I had gone to school with also who we both knew. And he was in college, but he decided that it wasn't really for him. So he left college and he started dating some chick from our hometown. And he's like, he was living with his mom. And he's like, oh, shit. Hey, man. What's up with that? Do you guys got somewhere, where I could come and stay there too? Cause I need, I can't have my girlfriend coming over to my mom's house cause that's just kind of weird. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we kind of got it figured out. We're like, oh yeah, we got this, we got it figured out. So where there was like, basically it was a duplex, but it was like half of a duplex, I guess that makes sense cause duplex. So on one side of the duplex, there was, one couple. And then on our side, I had one room on the upstairs level. The dude who, with his girlfriend, he was in another bed upstairs, and then basically like the downstairs was kind of just considered to be like the domain of the guy who got kicked out of his mom's place. And so there was like a small, like, I don't even know, I guess it was a bedroom, but it was pretty much like the size of the bed, and that's where he would sleep at, and otherwise he just had his computer and shit more like, like in the entryway, living room area. I don't know. There was like a kitchen with a small dining space, and then like the living room was almost kind of like divided in a weird way. So that was basically like kind of his domain, and it was all kind of cool with everybody. But the thing about this place was, I think probably one of the first things that happened that we realized is that we were upstairs one time, and me and the dude were just hanging out upstairs, and he goes and he leans back on the wall like this. Cause I had the bed, and I had like my bed and like a desk. Like there was some stuff that was left over. I know for a fact, I never brought any furniture into this place, except for one thing, which I'll get to. But he's leaning back, he's just like sitting on the bed, and he leans back like this, and he starts falling through the wall. Like, it was actually so strange. I've never seen anything like, the wall was like totally hollow. It was like fucking cardboard. So him leaning up against it at all, like, caused him to, like, he actually fucking collapsed part of the fucking wall. And it was ridiculously insane. And this is when we started to realize that the landlord was a piece of shit, because I called that in, like, immediately. I'm like, oh shit, your fucking wall's collapsing, you need to fucking get this shit fixed. And they never came the whole time we were living there, but in time, there started to be some grievances that would come around. It was, I started college that fall for the first time. So I was living on my own for the first time, or I should say living outside of my parents' house for the first time, going to college for the first time. I didn't even have a car, so I was taking the bus. Plus I was working my job, pretty much damn near full time, or as close to full time as I could muster, because I was taking a heavy amount of coursework, but I needed to pay the bills, and so it was a lot of juggling, a lot of shit going on. But in the same sort of vein, I did feel kind of independent about it. But what started to happen was, you get these things, that start to happen when you start living with people who you get along with these people, and you kind of you're agreeable with them until you live with them, and then things start to get a little bit, kind of weird, where it's like, I don't know, people would be taking the last roll of toilet paper to get used up, and then you're like, oh, hey, I've bought the last 5 rolls of toilet paper when somebody's gonna buy some toilet paper, and then nobody would buy it or whatever. Or, this is why I ended up having to buy my first and only piece of furniture, which was actually a mini fridge, because I would put things into the fridge that I would purchase for myself to eat, and I would go the next day and they would all be gone, or whatever the case might have been. And then it was a lot of that going on, where there was some give and take going on, but it was more like I'm giving and it's being taken. And so I was like finding that to be a little bit annoying. And so then I'm going, and I eventually, I can't remember if it was for my birthday or something that year, whatever it was, I got a mini fridge for a pretty decent price, and I'm putting as much basically into that as I can. I'm having it in my fucking bedroom upstairs. And my good pal, who's living on the ground floor, is starting to realize that the fridge has nothing in it anymore. There's no food in the fridge, and he's like, "What the hell is going on? Hey man!" And so the thing then was that since there was no food in the fridge for him to eat, he started ordering pizzas, and he would order pizzas, and like every single day, and then it came to be where it was time for him to pitch in for his share of the bills, and he'd be like, well, gosh, I was trying to eat some food, and there's no food in the fridge, so I had to order pizza. Now I don't have any money I had to order this pizza, so I don't have any bill money. Gosh, I'm sorry, dude. And this is something I ran into more than once, and it wasn't even just him either. I've had this happen to me, because I've lived in a couple places. I've lived with a certain particular individual who I'm legally not supposed to be talking about. Let's just say there was somebody in my life who was not contributing their fair share, who is recent and close to me. But I mean, I was like, on one hand, I was like, dude, just buy a fucking TV dinner or something. You don't have to spend. Oh well, and then he'd be like, oh, I just didn't have time. And I'm just so hungry. The only thing I was gonna fill me up was 2 pizzas, because he was a bigger guy, and I don't mean fat. I mean like he worked out, so like he did take a lot of food, but he just wasn't getting enough hours at his job or whatever the case was. And then another time, he decided that he just he'd heard about some good movies, so he wanted to watch some movies. So he went and he starts basically going on Pirate Bay and just downloading like all different kinds of movies and shit. And I wake up like, within 2 days, I had numerous DMCA things being emailed to me like, oh, there's piracy going on in your network. And he was downloading basically these these movies off Pirate Bay that were like brand new, just came out in the fucking theater like yesterday, and they were like infected with some kind of tracker to basically, say, hey, this guy's pirating. And I was like, hey man, yeah, can you not do that? And he was, and he'd be like, I mean, it was really, I don't know how to put it. If people out there have had roommates, I'm sure you can kind of get what I'm saying at. It wasn't like it was like a full-fledged, back and forth argument. It was kind of just like, well, hey man, can you just maybe not do that? And then he's kind of like, well, what do you want me to do then? I'm kind of trying to watch some good stuff, and what am I supposed to really watch? You got something for me to watch, man? I'm just, I think you're making a big deal out of it, dude. It's just a little email. They're not going to do anything. I'm like, yeah, but I'd really prefer, if our internet service didn't get shut off, because I have some of my classwork and shit online I need to do where I submit papers and shit. So I'd really rather not get. And then, it was kind of like these pseudo arguments where nobody was ever really reaching a real, good balance. And, it was just kind of like, oh man, hey, so there was there was tensions flaring, and it was not a very good thing, cause I do I haven't kept up with this dude nearly enough, but he's always been a great guy, we've always enjoyed anime, we've always enjoyed MMOs, all the type of stuff I like, and he's been through a lot of shit in his life, and he's always been a real stand-up guy, so it's he's a good guy, but it's just this thing about, and we were younger too, it was really our first times kind of living in that sort of situation. But I'm trying to think. I think with the other dude, the upstairs dude, I don't really think he ever really had, I don't think we ever really had a whole lot of issues, that was pretty cool. But, the other guy, the guy who had gotten kicked out of his mom's, I'm trying to remember exactly what the situation was, but it came to be December of that year. And, there had been a couple months where he was a little bit, a day late and a dollar short. But I was trying to, I was getting it all the best I could, getting everything straightened out the best I could. And, I really don't remember what he was doing, but basically he decided that he was gonna, go to school somewhere, some new place or something, and essentially within, a day, all of a sudden his car is gone and, all his shit is gone. And I'm like, yeah, we kind of have this structured for, a three-way system, and you're kind of gone. I'm like, yeah, I kind of need to, figure something out with that. And, I swear to God, he was going to college for something somewhere. I don't remember what the fuck the whole thing was, even exactly about 100%. I really can't even recall. It's been a few years now, but it was either he was dropping out of school or he was going to school somewhere else. And he's like, well, here, I got some student loan money. So he gave me some hundreds of dollars in student loan money. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That kind of evens us out, but we still have we started the lease on June 30th and it's a 12-month lease and it's December now. So it's been not even 6 months. So, what are we gonna do? And he kind of was just like, oh, well, yeah, sorry. And he goes and he leaves, even though he was still on the lease and everything. So, I could have probably done some shit, but I was like, okay, well, and he kind of tried to even it out. He's like, well, hey man, listen now, man, you get you can have the bottom of the place. You can have the living room now. It's all yours now. So I did do that. I started I kind of tried to use the bottom part of the duplex and the top part to get the use out of both of them, but it really still wasn't worth it. Okay, cool, I have an extra place to sleep now, but I'm also having to pay, the fucking, yeah, looking back, okay, $700 a month. I've had to pay more than that before, but at the time, I'm fucking making $8 an hour working maybe 30 hours a week on a good week, so it's shit. Hard to, even 2/3 of that is hard to pay. I have other, food and all this other stuff. I can't remember if I was paying my own phone bill quite at that time. I think I might have still had that being covered by my parents, but it was still a pain in the ass to deal with so suddenly. And, but another problem that we had, I might end up having to run this a few minutes longer because I don't want to cut off anything interesting. But we had a couple that lived next door that I mentioned earlier. And these people, it was a guy who was an ex-con and his younger, I think fucking 10 years younger or so, art school, artsy girlfriend, who was actually pretty hot. And, but the problem is that I would say, I'm gonna guess that she was borderline personality disorder. I don't know that for sure. I couldn't confirm that, but what would happen a lot, and also we were living near a ghetto area. We weren't, in the ghetto, but we were kind of on the outskirts, because this was just, for whatever reason, all these property management landlords were buying up all these, fucking shitty ghetto houses and to rent them out on Section 8 or whatever. So the dude was a pretty cool dude. He was a pretty chill guy. He's 30-something. He fucking rode his bicycle to work every single day. Even when it was in the winter, he would just suit up and have a fucking ski mask and goggles and all this shit. He was riding his bicycle in the snow, all this crazy shit to make ends meet because he just, he was doing what it took. And his girlfriend was fucking insane. I could remember more than one time where I'd be laying in bed. I'm like, oh, okay, I was working my job where I'd have to work, I'd have to open the store every so often. So I was sleeping. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get up at 3:30 or whatever. So I'm snoozing. And all of a sudden I just hear you fucking piece of shit. She'd be fucking kicking the walls and kicking the door. And she'd be throwing plates and all kinds of shit and just screaming at the top of her lungs. And I'd be like, yo, fuck that. I'm trying to sleep. I got to get up for work. So I'd call the cops. It happened pretty often. I wouldn't say all the time, but it was, if it wasn't, at least every week, maybe every couple weeks, at least, that would be a breather. And then they'd get there, the cops would show up, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd try to say, hey, the girl, it's the girl, I'm hearing her fucking scream and break shit, and they would get there, and, she would suddenly, do a full 180 and be like, oh, he's so mean to me, he's abusive. And this dude was like the nicest guy, but he had done some time for like drugs or something. It must not have been drugs because usually it's hard for you to get a lease on an apartment if you have a drug charge on your record. But whatever he did, he's something, but he was a very, very chill guy. You never heard him raise his voice at all. But they would get there and be like, "Oh yeah, you ex-con, you piece of shit. Yeah, what are you doing to this poor young lady?" And she'd be like, "Oh please, I need to go to my mother's. I'm not safe here." And so they would take her to her mother's and basically like threaten to throw the guy in jail. They take her away, and she would come back. Like if she got kicked out at like, let's say like 2 a.m, they came and took her to her mother's. Like she would be back by like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And fucking beating down the door again. Be like, "Let me in, you fucking piece of shit! Let me in, you fucking piece of shit! It's all your fault! Everything's your fault!" So that was kind of a fucking annoying thing, and I'm really glad that, I've never enjoyed anybody, roommates is one thing, it's been kind of, hit or miss with me sometimes. You have your good days and your bad days, but I've never had somebody who I've lived next to, whether we're talking like in an apartment or duplex or whatever. I've never had somebody who I've lived next to that has been somebody who I enjoy. Cause I'm not a super antisocial person. I'm not gonna go over there and like ask to hang out with you probably or anything. I'm not gonna go over there and like, but when we're in this first place, and the dude was outside having a cigarette or whatever, we'd shoot the shit. He was a pretty cool guy, pretty chill guy to talk to. I kept in touch with the guy after I moved out of there for a while. I'd see him around at the store and be like, "Hey buddy, what's up? How you doing? Good to see you. Hey, how you doing?" But like when I had my last, apartment with a certain person who I won't mention, like we had this guy and this gal who would fucking just scream about killing each other, but we also had all these people who didn't speak English, so it was like you wouldn't hear the cops get called because fucking nobody speaks English. They can't, we're like, it's us speaking English and it's the people who are trying to kill each other speaking English. Everybody else is speaking motherfucking click clack with the fucking discs flapping around, You can't hardly understand shit, So, or the other place I lived at, when I first, was doing the Eggman thing, and I was, the place I was parked out in front of that people were stalking me at, and that I talked about in my stalker video. The guy who lived next door to me there was such an asshole. Just absolutely like, I think I've mentioned this maybe on like a stream or two before, but it would be like, I would be outside mowing or whatever, and like, I had to do that shit, and I was working nights, so it was hard to find good time slots sometimes, but I would have to find places to work on things out, if there was anything outside that needed to be tended to. Like, I had to do it when that guy was at work or whatever, because if he was home, when I first was there and first, like, talking to him, like, he was a cool dude. He's like, "Oh, hey, man, you young dude, hey, dude." But apparently, like, I wasn't the right kind of young guy. I must not have been, like, the right kind of, whatever. I don't know. I wasn't his flavor of neighbor for whatever reason, so he just became such a, he hated my guts, like, and he ended up moving away eventually, thank God, because he was such a fucking, it still gets me heated, because I just remember, like, I'd be out working or whatever, and he'd, like, pull up, like, he was getting up from work, and he'd just fucking sit there and, like, stare in my window, and I'd be like, "Fucking Christ, man, you fucking creepy fucker." Like, he'd just be like, "Hey, what are you doing, huh? What the fuck's going on, huh?" Like, I don't know if it was just, like, he hated introverted people, I don't know. But, all I know, I'm gonna tell you this much. Also, people never doing the dishes. I had to do the dishes so many times, and fuck, oh my God, I can't stand it. I cannot stand, I can be a dirty dude. I can be a fucking slobbish dude. Don't get me wrong. But people who just use dishes and refuse to do them, oh my God. And people who, we need to fucking take turns taking out the garbage. Why am I taking out the garbage literally every fucking week and that nobody else is ever gonna do it? That pissed me off a lot too. Like, I mean, can I, it became this thing where, I'd always considered myself to be like so irresponsible, and I'm still not a very responsible person. I'm gonna tell you that straight up. I'm not a terribly responsible individual in the way that I should be. But the fact that when I first moved out And in subsequent places where I lived with other people, I was so continuously forced into this role where I had to be responsible because people would not fucking do the shit that they were supposed to do. And it would just be like, it would just not get done and not get done and not get done. And then I'd be like, oh my fucking God, nobody's doing this. Fine, we have to do, I'm gonna do it because it needs to get fucking done. And then they, after that I'd be like, oh well, you did it, so I didn't, hey, you're the one who did it, so why should I do it? You're the one doing it. Yes, I fucking did it because the fucking plates that you left in the sink were growing their own goddamn ecosystem. And we had garbage that was sitting there for like a month because nobody was fucking bringing it to the garbage can, for God's sake. And yes, what else? Goddamn laundry or cooking or any goddamn thing, So all I want to say is whenever I end up moving to my next place, I always say, oh, I want to live on my own, and people go, oh my God, Eggman, you're fucking, your qualifications are minimum wage cashier job, and you want to be somebody who can live on their own. I'm like, oh my God, it's not even, it's like, why can't I just, God damn, it's like, fuck, man, I don't care. I will live in the fucking ghetto where people are getting shot outside of my apartment. I don't care, because I'll stay inside the fucking apartment. I just don't want to have to become somebody's mom, somebody my age. I don't have to be their mother, you know what I mean? But hey, I'm kind of irresponsible too. Yeah, I don't bathe as much as I should sometimes, especially now with my bad foot. And yeah, maybe I got dirty underwear laying around sometimes. Yes, okay. I'm a stickler about some shit, when maybe I don't have all the wherewithal to be such a dick about things, but, everybody who I've ever had contact with like that, obviously, except for the most, last year occurrence, which we don't speak on, everybody who I have roomied with at some point, I think they're great people. I really enjoy them as people. It's when you're living together and you get these pet peeves and stuff, it can really just like fuck with you. But, I wouldn't say anything but good things about them, any of these people as they are. I would, I can't tell you good enough things about them because we do all have generally had similar interests. It's not like I've been living with, some super athlete or something. It's always been people who are gamers and like anime and all that stuff, so. Alright, well this one's ran a little bit long. I probably fucking rambled more than I should. Probably being a dumbhead. But in any case, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Egg Wars. We're gonna keep the healing up. We're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep getting stronger and better. And we're gonna keep sipping these sips. We're gonna keep rocking the review brochure. We're gonna keep on rocking the SanDisk hat. By the way, this is not available anywhere. People have asked me, where'd you get that? It was from VidCon. As far as I know, you cannot buy this anywhere. I own one of the very, very few copies that exists. So that's basically all that is, sorry. But until next time, my friends, shout out to Bob Dirt again for winning the copy of Neckbeards. Hit up the dude if you live in South London, or South England, Midlands, or Greater London. And, guess we'll catch you next time, my dudes. Peace out.
Sounds from the void.